Today I'm going to show you the building of these two display cases that I built for a customer's artwork that they make. Howdy, this is Robert with Dailey Woodworks, and we build custom furniture and show you how to build your own custom furniture. So these display cases were made to hold some seashell art that our customer made. They are very cool pieces, and I hope I can get some pictures of them installed in the display cases later on. We decided to make this project out of red oak to match some of the cabinetry inside their home, and then we used a nice rich mahogany stain later on. This project is very similar to many I've built in the past. It's essentially a box that has some glass panels in it. And here you can see I'm just cutting all my parts to size. Whenever you're doing something like this, especially with rails and stiles, I try to cut all of my rails, all of my stiles at the same time without moving my stop block. That way I make sure I'm getting it dead on and consistent. This is the domino dock designed by Ramon Valdez. I've done a video over it before, but it makes batching out small parts very easy with the domino. I'm not sure the best way to do this with a glass insert. I thought about using my new rail and style bits that I got from my router, but then I would have had to break off the back part of the slot for the glass so I can insert the glass later. Instead, I glued it up and then routed it out later. For the tops and bottoms, I used some 3/4 inch red oak plywood, and then I cut the groove for my 1/2 inch plywood back. I always use 1/2 inch plywood instead of 1/4 inch plywood. I feel like it's just so much stronger and it gives it a lot more meatier product when you're done with it. And here I'm routing the sides as well. The 1/2 inch back will also give plenty of screw purchase to mount the artwork to the inside when we're all done. I always pre-sand everything these days. I find it just, especially with stain grade material, it's a lot easier to sand everything individually and then do some touch-up sanding than try to really get a good sand after it's assembled. Everything got a chamfer. That's just kind of what I like. It's my style, I guess, of I like a chamfer. So in the comments, what do you like whenever you're building furniture? Do you like, like an OG? Do you like it round over? Do you like it sharp square? What kind of profiles do you like to put on things? Here I use my rabbiting bit to rabbit out the back side for my glass, but then I had to go back and square that up with a chisel. Again, I'm not sure what would have been the most efficient way to do this, but this worked, and I'm happy with the end result, but it did take, I feel like it took longer than probably it should have. For the assembly of this, I went ahead and did dominoes for all of this, but I also combined my dominoes with pocket holes where they're not going to be seen, mainly because they make a fantastic clamp to hold things together. So the dominoes align it and give it the strength, and then you go back and run some pocket screws in there, and that clamps it tight for you, and it's never going anywhere. I did all of my pocket screws, of course, on the non-show faces, so they'll never be seen once it's installed. And here you can see me installing the dominoes with my shop apprentice and getting everything put together. Whenever I'm doing stuff like this, I like having the domino on the tight setting for one part and then the loose setting for the other part. That way I can have that little bit of adjustment to make sure I'm getting everything completely flush. For this project, my face frame and my box needed to be completely flush. So after I ripped my rails and stiles to width, I laid them out to get a dead-on measurement so I can make sure I was doing this exact. Because, you know, if a table saw is a 64th off, double that, that's a 32nd, and then you can have an issue. So once I got done playing on my phone, I went ahead and did a chamfer on everything. I like doing a double chamfer where I have two joints that come together, especially for a butt joint. You can see that here. It's just a nice little visual detail. Kind of the trick is if you can't hide the defect, make it a feature. And that is just one way of, oh, what if it's not perfect? Well, that little chamfer then makes it into a nice visual detail. So we're going to get that flushed up, and then I'm going to use dominoes to attach it. I first clamp everything in place, and then I mark all of my lines with my square. That way I can make sure all of my domino locations and mortises transfer correctly. On the face frame, I did the tight setting, and then on the body, I did my wide setting on my domino. Again, that gave me just a little bit of grace I needed to pull and twist things if something needed to happen. But this actually, both of these came together very easily. So, yay me for building a square box. It's kind of what you go for, right? I'm not sure of the proper number of dominoes that you would need here. I think I did 4 on the long sides and then 3 on the short sides, or it might have been 5 and 4. Not really sure. A spline would work here. Biscuits would work here. You could nail it on, but I didn't want to have to deal with any nail holes, especially since this was a stain grade project. And now it's just glue it and then hammer it down with a rubber mallet so you don't damage anything. And then because I don't have the glass in there, it's really easy to go in and add some clamps to pull it tight. And then on those non-show faces, I already had some pocket hole locations pre-drilled, so I just did that to clamp that down. Now I'm building the door. Building the door the same way. I put carpenter's triangle so I can make sure I have everything aligned. And for this, I actually went back and did my larger 10 by 50 dominoes for the door. I felt like that gives me more meat for that joint than just like a 6 by 40, which is what I normally use for almost everything. These little lever clamps that I got in a Festool kit, because I have a problem buying Festools that I don't really need, are really handy for using with a domino joiner. They're quick, they lock things down, they're easy to move. They don't put enough clamping force for like doing pocket screws or something like that, but for holding stuff in place to put some domino mortises in, they work great. And again, tight and loose so I can fine tune it once it's clamped up. And then just repeating the same process over and over and over again. Adding a chamfer, and now I'm routing out the back for that glass that's going to set in there. I'm not sure how long I've had this little Makita 18-volt router now. It is definitely my favorite router, and I have debated buying a second one many, many times. It's got plenty of power. The battery life is pretty decent, and it's just well made and easy to control for things. Can't really say that about this Craig jig thing. It works fine, but it's not the most elegant tool in the world. But it adds your hinges for European style concealed hinges just fine. For the larger one, I went ahead and did 3 hinges, because once you put that glass in there, that's a lot of weight and a lot of leverage. So having that extra hinge in the middle to help carry that weight really helps. The smaller one didn't need it. And here I'm just laying out where my hinges are going to go, and just measure mark, and there's about a 1/2 inch slot in each of those hinges for adjustment. It's a lot easier installing doors like this than it is once it's on the wall and then having to hold them in place. But not always an option. Not having the glass in there or having a panel in there made it really easy to work this project. Whenever if it was all solid, it would have been a lot more difficult. Now I'm just cutting my backs out of some 1/2-inch red oak plywood. Essentially, I made this a lot like I make a drawer. And I made it where I could just slide in the plywood panel afterwards, and then I just screwed it in place so it could be removed. That making it removable made it easier to stain, because then I was able to disassemble it, stain it. And you can see here I'm just fitting everything into place, pre-drilling on my screw locations, and driving some screws into that, and then I'll add a French cleat. For upper cabinets, or really anything I'm going to hang on the wall, I pretty much default to a French cleat. You mount the cleat on the wall where your studs are. You have plenty of room to make sure you hit 2 studs with a big old deck screw or whatever you want to use. And then you just hang your cabinet on it. And then boom, you're done. Every once in a while, you might have to put like a piece of paper for a shim to level it up. But rarely does that happen. And it just sits on there, locks it together. It's incredibly strong. It's going to hold well. And then for extra security, you can just run a screw behind where the artwork's going to go into one of those studs. Never be seen, locked on there until you want it to come off. So that's the way I do it. And again, because I didn't glue any of this, I was able to pull it apart. So whenever I move over to stain, it makes life easy. I've been asked to do a finishing tutorial video many times. Finishing is my least favorite part. If I could figure out how to sell unfinished furniture to people and still make a profit, I would, but haven't got there yet. So there it was, me staining it. Then it's putting it all back together. I really like test fitting all my hardware before I take it into finishing. That way, if I have to make any adjustments, I can make those before I have to mess up a finish. The customer specifically requested some type of weather seal so that dust wouldn't get into the cases when we're done. Now, nothing's going to be 1,000% dust proof, but what we did was I found some expandable foam sealant that was a peel and stick, and it just sticks on there, and that was good. Because the foam pushes against the door a little bit, we then needed to hold the door tightly closed, so I went and added those very inexpensive cabinet door latches, the spring-loaded ones that you can adjust, and that worked perfect. And then once it's hung on the wall, you don't see anything because it's hidden behind the door. And then that will also take some of the stress off the hinges whenever it's hung on the wall from having those latches kind of supported a little bit. And with all the adjustment that comes with anything, if there's any twist or anything that happens when you hang it on the wall, it'll be fine. I am not sure the proper name for these tack strips that I'm adding to hold the glass in. Essentially, I just ripped some 1/4-inch stock, stained it. After I set the 1/8-inch glass in, I tacked them in place. One thing I learned in this project is for most plywood panels, I undersize by about 1/16 of an inch. But then I'm able to cut those myself in my shop with my tape measures, and then if I need to take a little bit more off, I can. So if you're ordering glass from your glass maker, go ahead and undersize it by 1/8 of an inch length and width, so you have a little bit more room to work in, because their 1/16 and my 1/16 weren't quite the same. So all said and done, this project was pretty easy. There wasn't anything really unique or hard about it. It was just a fun little build that I got to do that was Not overly different, so I didn't have to reinvent the wheel, but was different enough to just be fun and not monotonous. So here's some pictures of the finished project. I hope you liked this video. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. I would definitely appreciate it, and we'll see you next time.